Now see Babylon strive, you mad? Yeah man! Don't try to resist this metamorphosis. Right yourself with Iman Blak. Listen to Iman. Step aside, slash ya.
This is Marogini. Salut, messieurs, mesdames. Vous êtes en train d'écouter Metamorphosis avec Doc Iman Blak.
People moving out, people moving in. Why? Because of the color of the skin. Run, 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 but you sure can't hide. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Vote for me and I'll set you free. Rap on, brother, rap on. Well, the only person talking about love and brother is the preacher.
From a cuckoo to a butterfly, metamorphosis.
There is a light far, far away, where there's no night.
People of the world into one vast organization to plant the banner of freedom on the great continent of Africa. If Europe is for Europeans, then Africa is for the black people of the world. Men and women as black as I am, and even more so, had believed themselves right under West Indian order of society. I was simply an impossible man to use openly the term Negro, yet everyone beneath his breath was calling the black man a nigger. I had to decide whether to please my friends and be one of the black whites of Jamaica and be reasonably prosperous, or come out openly and help improve and protect the integrity of the black millions and suffer. I decided to do the latter. There is no future for a people who deny their past. My foreparents, my grandparents, my mother and father did not suffer and die to give me an education to oppress, slight, or discourage my people. Whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, I shall use for the salvation of the 400 million Negroes of the world. And the day when I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more life for you. I unequivocally rejected the racist assumptions of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, even of wood and drawers of water. I predicated my view of man and the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men regarded were created in the image of God.
So many things that's held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. I know we've got a long, long way to go, and where we'll end up, I don't know. But we won't let nothing hold us back. We're putting ourselves together, we're polishing up our act. If you've ever been held down before, I know you refuse to be held down anymore. Stand in your way. I want you to listen to every word I say, every word I say. Ain't nothing else now. We're on the
live. The Metamorphosis is here. It's live. Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, word, sound and power, music, drumming, current affairs, everything to grow and lift up your mind. Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, creating beauty and stimulating change from a constant supply of relevant knowledge and information.
No more youths and youths for sale. We get wise and don't decide to change their style. Bobby wrong, keep your empty promises and your crooked smile. Metamorphosis, come with your thoughts, change your way of thinking. Metamorphosis, the change begins with you.
Metamorphosis, Black men of Ethiopia, Timbuktu, Alexandria gave the light of civilization to this world. Ethiopia shall stretch forth our hands unto God, and princes shall come out of Egypt.
I, son of the Most High, Jah Rastafari.
Keep listening.
And on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all the works which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his works which God had created and made.
Shall not enter this holy land. We wise and true man stand, sipping from this full cup of peace. Not one shall enter, not one. Your people shall not enter this holy land. We wise and a true man stand, sipping from the cup of peace. You chant down on Babylon. You chant down on Babylon. You chant down on Babylon. Chant down on Babylon. Give thanks and praise. Give thanks and praise. Give thanks and praise. Give thanks and praise to the whole man of creation. Chant on Babylon, chant on Babylon, you chant on Babylon, chant on Babylon. Give thanks and praise, give thanks and praise, give thanks and praise, give thanks and praise to the whole man of creation.
Metamorphosis.
ourselves. Nothing to achieve this way. It's worse than hell, I say. Get
Metamorphosis.
up and fight for your rights.
Metamorphosis.
Get up and fight for your rights. My sisters took us away from civilization, brought us to stay in these bee plantations, fussing and fighting among ourselves. Nothing to achieve this way. It's worse than hell, I say. Get up and fight for your rights, my brothers. Get up and fight for your rights, my sisters. Yeah. Took us away from civilization.
Tinastilin. Sata, Amasagana. Greetings, hail to ones and ones who are listening to this station, Stars FM. Give thanks to ones and ones who have make the effort to connect to this powerful station. And special thanks to those who connect themselves to the Metamorphosis. Yes, it's another time where we engage mind and thought, body and spirit and soul. We engage the faculties of thought, imagination, intuition, ultimately searching for the source of our power that dwells within. That power is the I. So we heal all eyes within earshot of the Metamorphosis. I am your host. I'm Dr. Iman Blak. I am here to steer you through the blackness to arrive at the consciousness that is the self, the divine self. Because I and I have several selves. The Rastaman was the first to elevate and extricate the higher self when the Rastaman spoke about the I and I. It was a conscious effort to connect with the powers that are really within. So as much as we know about me, that physical me that is always crying out and have some demand, there is also the conscious I. And within the I, there is even the higher I. Yes, the higher I. And the higher I is what the general public will call the creative power, the God. So the Rastaman recognize the God within through sound power and the consciousness of I and I. And so I and I, moving with within our own power, must get control over the me. Yes, because the me is the structure. But the me must be governed by the I. The me can feel hungry and the me can feel sleepy, but the I can insist that it will stay awake. And the I can insist because I have access to powers. The great power called the will, the great power called the desire. So I and I, once we activate those two energies, we begin to connect to the I and the I and to the ISI. And the ISI dwells within. Yeah, deep within the inner universe, which one and one have to try to be the master of before attempting to influence and sometimes control things that are on the outside. So the metamorphosis is about bringing that blackness to light. Metamorphosis.
travel all over through the works of Jah. One thing I know for sure, my roots I'll never forget. I always remember the road I traveled.
Metamorphosis, Dr. Iman Blak. Gather up your tools for exploration. Gather up your dictionary. Get your Bible, your pen, your paper, your map, your dictionary, a little cushion pen and fire to transform the meditation, to come to the consciousness that is deep within the blackness. If you imagine inside your own brain, there is no light. It must be a black box that we have on our shoulders. Yeah, a black box. And within that black box, if we move our consciousness to the center, it's like we're trying to move towards the center of the universe. Because within that blackness, there's infinity. Don't be tricked by your brain skull. It's just an imaginary border. Yes, the powers move within and without. The waves, the rays, move from within that blackness to the outside. This metamorphosis now is really going to move to look at our ways of celebrating what we have been calling Black history. Going for the last 30 years, I and I on the island of Jamaica been celebrating this holiday that was initiated by the blacks living in that overpowering white racist society called America, where the need for identity was even more pressing. But being an aspect of black liberation, it caught on here. And so I have been celebrating this week, this month, consistently over the last few years. But after 30 years of the same celebration, I have to ask some more fundamental questions. We seem to be regurgitating the same stories every February. We seem to be talking about the same heroes and heroines and their mighty deeds, and we try to draw inspiration from these events every year for 4 weeks. So, after a certain amount of time of seeing the same thing over and over, you begin to look at it from even different angles and question motives. But within this, our own investigation, I want to just look a little deeper now into what this Black history is about. And look at, there's a very important book, speak of it at all times, that has a deep impact on the lives of nearly all black people, particularly in the Western world, who are influenced by English societies and Spanish societies. It's really the Bible. This is such an important book in the culture of black people that it is considered sacred, it is considered holy, it is considered the truth, it is considered the absolute word of God given to inspired men to write these words that are supposed to represent the thoughts and the feelings of God, the Creator. So this book that has been imposed on the black people in the world gives them now a history. But this history goes beyond just the groups as individual persons or as a race of people. This history now goes into the history of the world, the history of the earth itself. So in trying to look at black history now from a different perspective, I want to look at not just the history of black people from, let us say, the day of creation, which was the sixth day according to the scripture. And I want to look into the history of the place on what we live, this place called earth. We need to know what is the history of the earth from the point of view of black people. Not just the history of black societies, not just the history of great black men and women, but the history of the earth itself. How much do we know of the earth's history from an African perspective? So this book that we have now, called the Bible, becomes an important text to give us some perception towards history. Because when we're looking at black history and we're looking at the people, we can only go in terms of the logical access to information. We can only go as far as, let us call, the first man. So within our tracing of the history of black people, we tend to try to find where and who was the first, and the first this and the first that. But the Bible now not only tells us about the first person or the first people, it tells us about the first day of this earth. It also tells us about the second day and the third day. It tells us about 4, 5, and 6 days of events and activities that precede the creation of even the first man. We're following along the Bible. We're looking at the book of Genesis, the first page, the first chapter. We're not going to move beyond that. We want to look at black history within that first 6 days. In other words, they give us a book that gives us the history now of the world. This is the book that tells us about the history of creation. So, as black people, what is our view? How does one view the history of the earth from the creation story, from day 1 to day 6? Is it really 6 days in the way we know a day now? Now, in order to understand these words that are in the Bible and to understand black history, we're going to look at the first 6 days as written in the Bible. And in these 6 days, we're going to explore the concept of time. We're going to explore the concept of space. We're going to talk about astronomy. We're going to talk about plant biology. We're going to talk about physiology. We're going to talk about psychology. I want them sort of prepare their meditation and look into themselves now and be brave enough to start this exploration of these 6 days that we have been told about. That all of these events took place in these 6 days, and on the 7th day that the God rested. So I want them begin to look at the text. We're going to look at the idea and question what really is a day. Is a day really one rotation of the earth? Is a day really sun up to sundown and sundown to sun up? What we talk about in the beginning of what? So we have to engage philosophy now of time. We're going to look into this first day. The first day. What was the first day about?
Stars FM, you're my number one.
Are you ready for some entertainment? Island View Jerk Center and Bar Brands may put in 20%. 3 days of fun. Friday, February 28, 2014. It's guest selector Bar Clock all night rum bar special. You drink it. Saturday, March 1st. Music by the Magnum Machine. All night you party. Magnum girls will be there. Drink Magnum tonic wine and have fun. Sunday, March 2. Music by Get a Hero. Drink rum cream all night. 3 days event. Island View Jerk Center and Bar. It's their anniversary. Sponsored by Magnum Tonic Wine, Rum Bar Rum and JRMW. You must be 18 and over. Drink responsibly.
Catch the showdown every Saturday morning, 10:30 to 11 a.m. on Stars FM. Yes, it's smoother sailing. The showdown. 2 artists goes head to head. You tell us who's your favorite. Call us on 453-1444. The showdown, 10:30 to 11 a.m. The showdown is sponsored by Fires Bar and Grill with their own hits this and every Sunday. Rocket in Norwich, Portland. Don't miss it.
Hey, this is me, Brother Gary. Tell us if you want to advertise anything you have. If you sell anything, truck, car, bus, anything you're keeping, make sure you advertise it past Tides FM. Call this number 439-5160. 439-5160. And I guarantee you, everybody I go into your business.
Metamorphosis continuing. Before getting really now into the essence of this exploration, as I said earlier, the basic theme and investigation in this program is: where does black history begin? Where does the history of black people begin? Does it begin with the first person, or does it begin with the first break of light? Does it begin with the creation of the oceans? When do we speak of our own history? When did our history begin? And who defines the starting point for the history of black people? I must define those things for ourselves, for sure. So before getting into this exploration of these 6 days before the creation of Adam and Eve, I want to just first thank all the persons who turned out at the Port Antonio Library on Thursday, yesterday. There was a collaboration between the Rastafari University of Higher Life Learning and the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission. 3 lectures were presented by the university. The first lecture was by Vice Chancellor Ras Osa Osabora. His title of his lecture was Marcus Garvey, the Template for Building Institutions Among Rastafari. The second lecture was by our other Vice Chancellor, Ras Makonnen. His lecture concerned the Moors of Africa and Portland. And the final lecture was presented by Iman. And my lecture was on the 6 days before creation, which is what I'm sharing with the item as we go through this metamorphosis. So I want to thank the JCDC. I want to thank all the students who showed up and asked some very poignant questions. I want to thank the greater public who participated. The library, Port Antonio Library, and Senior Librarian Mrs. Burton and Mr. Manahan from the JCDC. A real Portland effort. And this is the first outer public lectures by the Rastafari University of Higher Life Learning. Thought it was well received, and we thank all those who came out and those who supported the pen, because we launched the Rastafari pen. Yes, a pen that costs $1.50 in Jamaica terms, and the students were very excited. They supported it. The pen is red, green, and gold in colors. It has a Jamaica map on it in ice green and gold. And it has a quotation from Marcus Garvey that speaks to education as the medium for the creation of a people and their own society. So again, we want to give thanks to all those who came to the library, the political directorate, the persons of high stature in the town, persons who for the first time were engaging with the Rastafari University of Higher Life Learning, put some questions forward, got their answers. And I think the city will be growing from henceforth. And again, give thanks for all those who participated. Next month, within the Rastafari University, the theme will be Black Philosophy. The following month, we're going to deal with Black Psychology. Then we go into Black Science. And for each month, we have a theme, and we're going to work it through the parish, the island. And to our Facebook listeners, soon we'll have this lecture on our YouTube site. So you'll be able to access it and participate in the transformation through information from a positive Rastafari foundation. So we give thanks for all those who supported that venture. And of course, we continue to work with the JCDC and to uplift this parish of Portland. Metamorphosis again, moving into the I word sound and power. while we explore this history. This is a part that very often we duck it. We just hear it in stories and we read this one page in Genesis very, very quickly. We're exploring one page in the Bible, one page, one chapter, to locate and identify the history of black people in this era. How do we view the earth as a people, knowing that on the 6th day, God said, let us make man. On the 6th day, God said, let us make man. So there were 5 days that preceded the creation of man. So I and I must be able to use our intelligence and our intellect, and most importantly, our imaginations. Because anybody who writes about this era, whether they are inspired or not, wasn't there. Physically, they're not there. So it's all about brain. It's all about thoughts. It's about mind. It's about imagination. It's about creativity. So we have 5 days to explore before the creation of the first people. How long would this time take? Is it really 5 days of 5 earth rotations? So we have to get into the book. We're going to look at the very first page. And the first page has 3 important lines. Those lines simply say, in the beginning. Now that's a very powerful and profound introduction to any discourse, to any narrative, to any argument, to any story. In the beginning. Now for black people who were given this book to read and forced to believe it, we also had to believe in the concept of in the beginning. But we have access to tools of investigation. We have access to philosophy. We have access to astronomy. We have access to psychology. And we can use these disciplines now to interrogate and investigate the ideas that are given to us about what happened in these first 5 periods. Because a little bit from now, we're going to have to move away from using the word days. Because when we begin to look into this science of the earth, knowing that the earth has movement, and the basic movement of this earth is in a rotation. So we know the earth rotates, and we know that one complete rotation is a day. And we know that the earth also moves around the sun. It has a revolution. So we're living into a cosmos of movement. There's nothing stationary in the cosmos. All things are in motion. So we'll think about this notion now of in the beginning. And we'll begin to apply some philosophy and to examine the notion of time. Because the beginning gives you the concept of a timeline. And then we have been put in the position to think that everything must have a beginning. The mind accepts the idea that there must be a first. So once the mind holds a thought that there must be a first, then obviously the concept of the beginning will be motivated by a beginner. You have to be a starter to create the start. So once you explore the line of in the beginning, you have to get into the philosophical aspect now to speak about this concept of a starter. The nature of the starter, the beginner, the first. Where did the first come from? How does the first exist? What is the nature of this first? It requires philosophy. And it's reasoning. It's not about being there, you know. It's levels of reasoning. Now once you begin to engage to reason about the concept of time, we begin to recognize now that there are different ways of viewing time. And fundamentally, there's a European way of viewing time, and there's an African way of viewing time. So when the African has to explore the concept of the beginning, it has to be from the basis of how the African recognize time. From the European perspective, time is like a straight line. There is a point where the line starts, and there's a point where the line is going to end. That is the concept of the European concept of time. The African concept of time is different. Because particularly in Eastern Africa, we use it as an example, they have the concept of the Sasha and the Zamani, the present and the past. And the idea is that time moves from the present to the past. In the European concept, time moves from the present into the future, which nobody knows about, which is totally unknown. In the African construct of time, time moves from the present to the past. Because what happened now will be in the past 5 minutes from now. So right away, we have to begin to think now a little bit deeper about this concept of a beginning. And within the African concept of time, this past is infinite. And it is drawn from ideas that revolve around the concept of space. Because once you try to explore the time and the beginning, you have to begin to engage in the concept of space. Because time and space function together. So once you talk about time, and you try to answer the question, when, you also have to talk about space and answer the question, where. So for African people, reality is grounded in time and space. Reality is grounded in events that can be identified as happening somewhere and sometime. And through the science of physics and energy, I can say safely that energy is one of those existences that has no creation. That energy has no beginning. Energy has no end. Energy can neither be created nor can energy be destroyed, which means that energy has always existed. So there is energy, and energy is what transforms, and energy is locked up into consciousness. So when we explore time and talk about in the beginning, the European concept of time is straight. The African concept of time is cyclic. So in a cycle, there is no beginning. There's no beginning of time. And ultimately, there is no beginning to space. There is no end to space. There's no point in space where you can travel and drop out of space. Space is boundless. So the notion of the first day and the creation of the heaven and the earth couldn't not have been simply locked up in the rotation of one earth to give it a day. We're talking now about eons. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of years. We're talking about the earth traveling around the sun. We're talking about other planets. We're talking about galaxies. We're talking about stars. And we have to open up our consciousness to recognize that these bodies and these movements through time and space certainly are greater than one day. And so the earth was created without form, no life form, and darkness, melanin was on the surface of the deep. Darkness, great power, darkness, no evil, no fear. This is in the beginning. There are the powers of darkness. Because out of darkness will come all things. So it says that darkness was over the face of the waters, and the Spirit was over the hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." Talking about the sun, or are we talking about intelligence? Are we talking about spirit? Are we talking about mind? Because we're getting into metaphorical language. Yes, the book of Genesis, the first page, Black History Month. This is the last of it. So we're going into the book that has been embedded into our consciousness to the deepest level, and to which we hold our history. Because if we claim this history, then this is also Black history. Black people, what is our history in the first 5 days? How do we view, what is our story? What is our version of the history of the earth in those first 5 days? Because the man who wrote the story lived 1200 years before the Christian era. The story is attributed to Moses. So what about the man and man who were here hundreds and thousands of years before Moses? So what is our view? I must develop our own view of those first 5 days. And we're going to have to work with the text. But that's what they give us. So the first day, and that there was light, and it was good. And the separation of the light from the darkness. Now I know that the rotation of the earth gives us night and day. Yes, it is a rotation of the earth that gives us the phenomenon of night and day. So we are told to believe that there are going to be certain things that were going to be created now on the second day. And on the second day, again, we're questioning the idea of this 24-hour period. Can any such set of events now happen in a one rotation of the earth? Because in the second day now, Genesis 6, we hear that God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. And let it divide the waters from the waters. These are all metaphorical speakings, metaphorical talkings. We have to interpret what firmament is. One meaning for firmament is heaven. So we hear about several heavens. So I forced to become confused. Because the first thing that said that God made the heavens and the earth, which means there are several heavens. Rastafari, in searching for self, found that the highest heaven was the mind. So the Rastaman always say, "I must dwell, search all things within the heavens." So the heavens, to some people, is simply above the bodies that surround us in the galaxies and the stars. But within the consciousness, the heavens really is the mind. Yeah, man. So when a man say, clear up your heavens, I mean, clear up your consciousness.
So rise and shine, and with your liberation.
And the evening and the morn were the second day. So we go with the story, you know, and we hear about all these things now, and we are told to believe that in 48 hours, all these things took place. 48 hours, 2 hours of the rotation, two rotations of the earth. And we hear that all these things have been done by God the Creator. Now, here we have the earth now, and the earth will go through now its evolution. Because the earth will experience evolution now, you know. The earth itself will experience evolution, because there are certain kingdoms of life that are on this planet Earth. Certain kingdoms. And I mean kingdoms that have vast amount of species and life forms. And these life forms take hundreds of years to grow and to evolve. When we think about the history of the earth, one of the most important things needed for survival on this earth is water. H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, gases. So gases become a very important element now in this space in which we live called Earth. Gases, hydrogen, oxygen, helium, nitrogen. These gases will become life supportive. These gases would take years upon years for these bonding of chemicals to come together to create now what we're going to call atmosphere. There is need for an ocean. There must be an ocean because there must be a place where life is going to catch. And on the planet Earth, life catch up and began in the ocean. We're talking about eras now. Eras. We have to move away from the concept of days because no life forms can really develop to the level that we see in days. The greatest animal size-wise on the planet Earth, I think, is a sea animal. The animals in the sea have been here for thousands of years. Thousands of species of fish. This is before the creation of man, you know. This is before the 6th period. This is the earth now being organized for habitation. This is a planet now that is going to be seeded. Because we need seeds. Everything on the planet grows from a seed. So the oceans would have to be seeded. We're talking about eon upon eon. Genesis 9:13 continues that on the 3rd day, God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And the gathering of the water, all the seas. So here we have now a separation now of land from sea. And within the sea is where the life will originate. Within the sea, within the ocean, bacteria, fungus, one-celled plants, one-celled animals. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years of Earth history to develop environment before man could even occupy this place. So the Black History exposition now taking us outside of these notions of 6 days and out of this 6,000 year history of the earth. Because the Christians try to lock black people mental history into 6,000 years. And it takes more than 6,000 years to move, to grow, to develop from a dog to a coyote. It takes 6,000 years to move from one-cell animals to two-cell animals. So right away, I and I must open our thought process towards the concept of time. I realize now that things are happening in the thousands and the thousands of years. And we have begun to ask the question, if not, is it possible also that black people could also be thousands and thousands and thousands of years old? Yeah, man, you remember them trick us, you know? They have taken us out of ourselves and locked us up in a book and given us a story. And in the story, time is condensed and crushed. And things are happening at time and warp that is totally impossible. But in the 3rd day, the story continues. That the dry land was created. No. Within this dry land conception, we have to know if Africa was a part of this dry land. And obviously, Africa is the biggest continent. So when the dry land was being created and being separated from the seas, African people wanted to know that Africa was there. Yeah, the place where life now is going to originate. And Africa couldn't just appear in 24 hours. We're talking about the evolution of the earth over its thousands and thousands of years. And we use the sciences of measurement. We study plants and we study rocks to get an understanding of time, because these are ancient residents of the earth. The plants are perhaps the most important life forms on this planet. The plants. And we have thousands and thousands of varieties and species of plants. Plants are more important than man. Yeah, plants, because the plants provide everything for animals and man to survive. The plants provide food. The plants provide medicine. Plants provide shelter, clothing. The plants. So the plant kingdom now takes thousands and thousands of years for the plant kingdom to evolve. So now kingdom of the plants could evolve in a day. So right away the days blow up. And we're looking now into thousands and thousands of years of existence for the planet to evolve, to reach a level where the atmosphere is up to the standard where animals and man can breed. So the black people now who have been trapped into the 6,000-year psychology, you better start thinking. The earth is in its billions.
Planning a party, club night out, stage show, a gospel concert, or even a business sales event? Let Styles FM be a part of your promoting tool. Take advantage of our low-priced promotion packages with commercials, interviews, giveaways, reviews, and much more. We have special offers when you mix and match and bundle your options. Contact us at 876-286-9216 or 439-5160. Styles FM for the most effective way to exploit your marketing dollar.
Look out for Roger Store for all your drugstore need and pharmaceutical items presents the featured artist. Every Saturday morning during Smooth Sailing from 10 a.m. to 10:30, we feature one of Jamaica's top artists, sponsored by Look Out for Roger Store. We specialize in candles, incense, soap, spiritual oil, bath and floor wash, frankincense, and much more. We are located at shop number 4, 35 West Street, Navy Court Plaza, Port Antonio, and at shop number 3, Newland Plaza at Notre Bay, St. Mary. Look out for Roger Store, the featured artist.
Hi, this is Brother Gary telling you about the best credit company in the whole United States, National Credit Consultant. Anywhere you are right now, listen to stylesfm.com in the whole United States. There's a special going on for you right now, 30 to 90 days, and you can get brand new credit. Call this number right now, 1-800-330-5221. 1-800-330-5221. 1-800-330-5221. Anywhere you are in the United States, listening to stylesfm.com. Only USA listeners only. The best credit company in the whole United States, National Credit Consultant. And Marco, how long it take to fix someone credit?
30 to 90 days, Brother Gary. 30 to 90 days, we're going to get you back on the road to good credit.
So you are telling me, my Styles FM listeners, if they call right now, they can get good credit in 30 to 90 days.
That's right, Brother Gary. That's why we're the leaders in credit repair in the whole country, Brother Gary. National Credit Consultants, we've been doing this for over 14 years. We have an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. We have endorsements like the Brother Gary Show because we provide the results between 30 to 90 days, the fastest turnaround time in the industry, Brother Gary.
So stylesfm.com listeners only. This is your number. 1-800-330-5221. 1-800-330-5221. 1-800-330-5221. stylesfm.com in the US only. Out.
Got to have a good vibe. it much easier. Yeah. Say you just can't live that negative way. If you know what I mean, make way for the positive day. 'Cause it's news and days, new time. And if it's a new feeling, yeah, said it's a new science. Oh, what a new day. Picking up. Are you picking up now? Your love, protect us. Your love, protect us. Your love, protect us. Rastaman vibration, yeah, positive. Iron eye vibration, yeah, positive. I am on vibration, yeah, irie eyes. Whoa. Positive vibration, yeah, positive. Picking up. Are you picking up now?
Yeah, Metamorphosis continuing, and of course the people are picking up. They are picking up. I must hail up the people who are picking up this through Splash Radio. Splash Radio at 94.3 FM over there in New Jersey. And we have all the people in Orange, East, West, and South Orange, and even those who are in the juice spot. Hail up all the people in Orange, the people in Newark, Irvington, Maplewood, Bloomfield, Glenridge, Union, Montclair, and Hillside. Give thanks for the connection to the Metamorphosis all the way there in New Jersey. Hail up all the people in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Hail the people in the East Coast generally. Never ever leave out the people in the South. And bigging up the people in the West, and the people in the North, and the people in the center of that place called US of A.
If you get down and you quarrel every day, you're saying prayers to the devils, I say. Oh, why not help one another on the way? Make it much easier.
So we're continuing the journey, exploring those first 5 days that very often we overlook and totally ignoring most times, and begin to start to speak about black history from first man, and the first man, and who was the first man and who was the first woman, and whether the woman come out to the man ribs, and who is superior and who is dominant, and who sell who and who incest who, and a whole set of this confusion in this so-called starting. But we need a new start. We need a new beginning. So we're exploring what is it we have been given, and how have we interpreted these events, and have we ever explored this section of the writings. And the writer we know, they say it was Moses. And we know that Moses lived in Egypt amongst black people, that he went to the universities of black people. We know he was a highly trained African scientist. But his writings cannot necessarily reflect the entire globe. Moses writes in 1250 odd years before the Christian era. So it is a one-man imagination projected that is giving us these days of creation. We don't know what he was smoking. We don't know what he was drinking. But this is his projection of what happened 5 days before the first man was created. So we're exploring it now, checking it out, because we don't know whether them psychotic or him ill or schizophrenic, or whether them was homophobic. We don't know what was the nature of this writer. But we have been given his story, and we have taken it without even thinking. And so we want to hide them think. This is the last day of the month to give us a think about our black self, because next month everybody going back to Jesus. And everybody going back to the cross of Calvary. And everybody is walking penitent, and the baptism thing start, and the christening and the whole church thing. Rome becomes the dominant force. Right now, Rome give us 4 weeks to jump up and celebrate. And everybody back onto the farm come March. So this is the last shot they give us, and we're going to fire the shot. We're looking into a zone that we're not trained to look into. But we're using the disciplines that we have access to into this period of time that no man was, where no man existed in this time, no woman. But we're hearing about events taking place, projected out to the imagination of one man. So Genesis 3 continues, on the third day, Genesis 1, it says, and after God gathered all the water in one place and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land Al-Kibulan. Yeah, I think that's what God called the dry land. Al-Kibulan, the land of the blacks. So the earth continues now. And 11. And it says, let the Africa, let Al-Kibulan bring forth grass, and the herb that yields seeds, the fruit tree that yields fruits, whose seed is in itself. And Al-Kibulan brought forth grass, the herb that yields seeds according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruits according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So here we see now the explanation for the evolution of plants. We're talking about the earth bringing forth grass and bringing forth trees. These things will happen overnight. And amongst the plants that came out of the earth, the most important plant that came out of the earth came from a family called the cannabis. Yeah, the cannabis family is the most important family of plants on this planet. And in that family of cannabis, there are two important plants. One is called the ganja plant. One is called the hemp plant. These are plants now that are on the earth before man was even created. These are plants that are going to evolve and provide medicine for animals and ultimately medicine for man. This plant called cannabis sativa, which according to Genesis came out of the earth on the third day. It is this plant that later on we hear was in the Garden of Eden. It is this plant that we are told that if you eat of that plant, your eyes will open and you will be like the gods and know good and evil. We're talking about the plant kingdom, a plant that has power to open and to connect man to knowledge. Yes, a divine plant. And within the plant kingdom, there are two basic type of plants. This is across the entire earth. Two kind of plants. There are plants that can feed themselves, meaning these plants are self-sufficient. These plants are independent. These plants are self-reliant. I tell you about all principles that exist before man, according to the scripture. These plants are classified as green plants. These are the most important plants on the planet because it is the green plants that connect to the sun. And through the process of photosynthesis, the green plants use the sunlight, use the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, use the minerals in the plant, in the soil, and create food. So these plants feed themselves. Green plants. But there are other plants on the planet now, you know. These other plants, we call them parasites. These are non-green plants. These plants exist by living on green plants and living on dead animals. So within the plant kingdom, which evolves over millions and millions of years, the plant kingdom have developed green plants and non-green plants. The green plants are linked to the sun. The sun works through the green plants, create oxygen. And once there's oxygen, we can talk about now the next phase. Because without oxygen, there is no air to breathe. And for the plants to live, they need carbon dioxide. And so there's a cycle that sets up now between the plants and the sun. Yeah, a plant cycle. The green plants and the sun operate in a cycle. This is before the sixth day, when God said, let us make man.
Fighting against conviction. With a pregnant woman, yes, and 5 kids to care for. Can't cool my heels, I've got to do the town. Skillful as I am, the jailer man is bound to find me. I pray the day will come when I shall be free from battering down sentence. Fighting against conviction, battering down sentence. All live long day, fighting against conviction. To be trapped and caught and taken before judge and angry jury, pleading before men who seem to have no mercy. Then to fortify myself down in the dungeon. I've got to stay free so that my kids won't be battering down sentence. Fighting against conviction, battering down sentence.
Alright, Big Ed, same day and Nantucket. Hail up to the man, Jermaine Big Ed. Big Ed is a youth who come out of the lovely and structure right here in the heart of Port Antonio. Yeah, man, I was soon hail up your birthday in color, because color is national now. Talk about him in sports. Hail up, Big Ed, and the people in Nantucket.
My mind and soul would soon be weary, just couldn't take no more battering down sentence. All live long day fighting against conviction. Children, hear me when I say battering down sentence. All day long fighting against conviction. Hear me when I sing my song, battering down sentence.
Alright, so we're continuing our exploration into these quote unquote now days that looking like eras, that looking like eons. These are just different dimensions of time. A day is a 24-hour in our time period. And you know, when we talk about time, we have different constructs of time. There's natural time. Natural time, we would say, can be defined by the movements of the bodies around us, the satellites and the moons and the stars. And so we have seasons. So within natural time, there are seasons. And the seasons are related to the movement of the planets, how far the Earth is from the sun, the different movements of the moon, the impact of the moon upon the tides. So there is a natural time, and there's a natural rhythm, and there are events that happen naturally. And the events that happen naturally, and we know will happen again, happens in a dimension that the Africans call the inevitable. So within the African construct of time, there was a past and there's a present. But there's an event, there's a dimension that the Africans call the inevitable. It wasn't the future, it was the inevitable. And there's a subtle difference between the future and the inevitable. The inevitable is reality. The future is a approximation, it's a projection. It does not have to be real. So there are people who are afraid of the future, which means they're afraid of what is not even real yet. That's a sign of illness. We hear in Jamaica that our children are our future. That statement is constructively destructive. Because the children are not our future, the children are inevitable. And the children are our present. Yeah, when we begin to view our children as our present, we deal with them better. Because we don't know what in the future is. And so we handle them anyhow and anyway in the present. But if you realize that the children will become the past, yeah, we better deal with them properly in the present. So the time is a dimension that we need to continue to explore as black people. What our notions of time. We have been locked into the Eurocentric concept of time for over 2,000 years. And we have lose our rhythm. When the white man come amongst us and say we waste time, and then tell us that time is money, and link up money now with the unit cost of labor, and suddenly we have lost our natural consciousness as it relates to the infinity of time. So the story continues in the Genesis, this first page, trying to shrink millions and thousands of years into 6 days. So the story tells us that by the end of the third day, the earth was bringing forth grass, and the earth was providing herbs that would yield seeds that would become food for man and animals. This was the third day. Now, as I said to the eye, plants don't grow in a 24-hour period, as far as we know what we call conventional time. So there's natural time and there's conventional time, time that is man-made, time that is defined now by a clock, a time that is defined by 24 hours, time that is defined by 60 seconds equal 1 minute. So we have to begin to be conscious now of the different types of time. There's natural time and there is conventional time, man-made time. So if we talk about the first days of creation before man was made, we can't speak about man-made time, because there is no man. So time then is within the dimension of naturality. And within that dimension of naturality, there is no beginning to time. Time is continuous. Time is energy. Time is creativity. So the African uses time differently than the European. So we hear that in this period, there is green grass, and there's herbs, and there are seeds, and the environment is becoming more suitable for the habitation of man. And we're talking about over thousands and thousands of years. over millions and millions of revolutions, of rotations. Yes, and hundreds of thousands of revolutions around the sun. Once we begin to go now beyond this third day, we move into a very interesting period of the fourth day. Because the fourth day, we hear that things that are brought forward now are things of a animal nature. We hear about the creation of creeping things. We hear about the creation of flying things. We hear about the creation of crawling things. So in the book now, the fourth day really doesn't tell us anything different, because the fourth day repeats day one. The fourth day tells us that God said, let there be light in the firmament for the heavens and the stars, and that there will be seasons. And it speaks to time. It speaks to the division of night from day, and it's speaking about the signs and seasons and the years. And the lights were in the firmament of the heavens. So the fourth day is a repetition of the events on the first day. It is really the fifth day now, when Genesis 20 to 23 tells you now that God said, let there be creatures, an abundance of sea creatures, abundance of land creatures. Now I want to let them think quietly and slowly. Because there are some kingdom of life on this earth that are actually supreme and superior to man. When we begin to look at, for example, the kingdom of the insects, the fish alone is overbearing. We can't match the fish. The fish has a spinal column. The fish is a vertebrate. The fish breathes through its gills. But there are fish that can fly. And there's going to be an evolution from gills to lungs. And the amphibian would become a dominant creature on the land now. Because the amphibian could live in the water, and the amphibians could come to the land. So frogs, crocodiles. We begin to see a whole era of a certain type of animals. We hear about creeping things. And within the history of the earth, we know about the age of the reptiles. The reptiles were great snakes. We hear about giant snakes that have been on this planet. These growths of life forms cannot occur in a short span of time. We're talking about hundreds, we're talking about thousands of years for the evolution of the reptiles. Then we hear about the birds. And within the bird kingdom, we see relics of giant birds, pterodactyls, birds 40 feet wide in wingspan. This is a very ancient earth that we're on, black people. This earth cannot be 6,000 years old, according to the interpretation of the Christian world. The planet that we're on is millions and millions of years old, based upon the evolution of life forms. So there are creeping kinds, there are snakes, there are giant snakes, there are animals. What about the dinosaurs? There are giant animals in the earth. These animals didn't grow overnight. We're talking about tens and tens and thousands of years of black history, because the black people must be able to explain themselves once we accept that man was created on the sixth day. So these are not days, these are periods, these are eras, these are eons. Eons are thousands and thousands of years. So the planet itself now really begins to look like a more ancient place. And the black people on it now must begin to recognize that when the lands separated from the water, Africa was there.
scheme of things, what are your words to your brother beings? What are you doing toward the scheme of things? What are your words toward your brother beings? Now let the truth shine bright through all your actions. As you strive toward the accomplishment of your mission, as you seek to feed the sheep of the shepherd. You'll be found worthy to enter into the vineyard, but there is too much pollution in the land. Said I need some atmospheric vibration. Too much confusion. Here I go. The whole world is suffering from illusions, but redemption stands within the scheme of things. The Redeemer's call, the King of Kings, purifies the soul from unclean things. Know your place within the scheme of things. Wise ones will hear and will.
So God created sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were the fifth period. Then God said, Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that crept on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good.
It will come with floods of conflict and conviction. So what are you doing toward the scheme of things? What are your words to your brother beings? What are you doing toward the scheme of things? What are your words toward your brother beings? What are you doing?
Yes, I and I, this is the story. This is what we have been given. This book has been indelibly printed into the psyche of black people. Maybe it reached a genetic level now. This story, all cultures have a story of creation. And I must begin to explore the one that was given to us. This one has been forced upon us. This one has been enforced. And we have always been told not to ask questions. Don't go into God's business. But God's business must be people business if God make the people. And so the mind, which has the power to investigate and inquire, and has will and desire and imagination, must be set to work. So again, we're exploring what has been given, what has perhaps never been challenged, what perhaps has never been explored. These periods that they call days, that the King James and his authors chose to call days, and then give it to the black people, telling them that a day is the same equal to the day when you go out and slave for a day. And when they put us in the field to slave, and we slave from morning till night, from what we can't see in the day till we can't see at night, and they say that was a day, they want us to accept that the evolution of life on this planet, all these plants and animals and things, all of these are taking place within the period of one day. We have to recognize that this is not possible. This is totally insane to hang on to this as a belief, because the knowledge is there. We have science, we have astronomy. The discipline of astronomy was developed by black people. The Babylonians developed astronomy to such a high level and mathematics that it became the foundation of the Europeans' study of astronomy. It's the Babylonians who set the foundation for European astronomy as a discipline. So I know these things, and I give it to others. It's time I use these tools to uplift and educate and inform myself. Now, we're coming to a critical stage now within the text. Because so far, up to the 5 days, we hear of the evolution of the earth, developing atmosphere, developing germs, plant life, sea life, land life, life in the air. Fish become birds because they learn to fly, and they are flying fish. And there are fish that can come on land, catfish that can walk, fish that can live without water for days on land. So we're seeing the evolution of the breathing system, where the life forms in the earth are developing lungs. They're moving from gills to lungs. And in that transformation, land becomes a terrain for life forms. Before there are any real creeping and giant animals, we have to pay a little attention now to the kingdom of the insects. Because the insect kingdom is critical to the life chain on the planet. Yeah, the insects. And insects can develop in a day. The millions and millions of species of insects could never evolve in a 24-hour period, as far as we know, time. But if you consider natural time, we're talking about thousands and thousands of years. One of the most important set of insects to occupy this planet, and we're talking about before man, you know. Before the creation of man, there is an insect kingdom. And the ants, I tell you I them know, the ants them, look like them is a prototype of life, you know, the ants. Because the ants them have society in a brethren. Yeah, the ants them have organization. Them have division of labor. You talk about man and him supremacy. The ants. Yes, the ants them also know how to go to war. You have soldier ants. You have nurse ants. You have slaves. The ants them capture the ants and turn them in a slave, you know. Ants. Yeah, man. The ants is 20 times stronger than his body weight. So the ants them super. So we could look at the thing now differently. Because this story about creation, and in the first day there was that, and in the second day there was that, and we fool are going like say, yeah man, sunrise and sunset, boop, everything happened again. And the sunrise and sunset again, boop, everything happened again. That cannot be real. That is how it happens in the movies, where everything is condensed and collapsed in real time and in real space. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of revolutions around the sun, but these things will evolve. So the ants right now is being studied by man, because the ants can communicate with each other from serious distances. The ants have ESP, extrasensory perception. Yeah man, their antennas are highly powerful. Their sense of smell is incredible. Them can smell all through glass. You put sugar in a bottle and put it down and see if the ants don't get up on the outside. How them know sugar in there? How them know that? They have powers. Yeah man, and man eventually would be endowed with these similar powers. Because man will eventually find himself with antennas. These antennas will grow out of the head of man, which Rasta man called locks. But in his scientific knowledge, it is really aerials. So you see the ants kingdom? You ever see ants crash it? Ants move at high speed and they don't collide. How can they avoid them kind of skills there? What is it that ants have that man don't have? Another critical set of insects now are the bees. Again, a society, highly organized, displaying intelligence, and creating food. Queen bee, hierarchy, royalty. So you see the man them here now, we're going like them have dominion over all things. We got to stop and think about that construct. Where that idea come from. So we're going to deal now with the critical stage of this process. We have an environment created. We have ocean. We have atmosphere. We have clouds. Fish in the sea. Plants on the land. Creeping kind. Flying kind. Insect. Bird. Mosquito. Everything here now. And we're going to wait now the introduction of man.
If you are living in a marketplace and you're no buyer or seller, you'll find yourself left in space, subject to be bought or sold. If you are living in a tenant yard and you are not the landowner, you'll get that notice from your landlord to leave sooner or later. So what you need is liberation. Everyone needs it, young and old. Liberation. Let's come together for a liberation. If you are in bondage, you are not free. Liberation. Let's unite for a liberation. Everyone needs it. If you are dwelling on a piece of land and you are not the landowner, you can be sure.
So the text lines are firing. Someone is asking. Someone is saying on the text line, them says, so God made man in his own image? Question mark. So whose image did he make the animals in? Question mark. And where was God living before he created the earth? Aye. Our listeners are thinking. Potent questions. Where was God before he created the earth? Maybe God was in Sirius. Maybe God was on another solar system. Yeah, we have to find out these things, because we might realize that there is none. And that we are here. And that gods are concepts within our consciousness. Yeah, when we begin to look into the vastness of the cosmos, man, even God started look like a minuscule. God, this thing are bigger than God. Yeah, man, this thing is infinite. And God speaks about beginning and ending. And the philosophers ultimately ask the question, who created God? What created God? And where did God exist before its own creation? These things become befuddling. So eventually you just abandon the notion of a creator. And realize the creator really is the mind. It is the mind that is the creator, Yeah, it is the mind that is the creator. The creator is the mind. All things manifest from the mind. But coming out of the plantation and into enslavement, we get disconnected from our own minds. And we've been connected now to some concept of a creator that is outside of ourselves. So we'll ask the questions as we explore this 5-6 days. And we're coming to the point now where we are at the 6th day. So after we get the story of the place being prepared, all the gases are in place, enough oxygen is in the atmosphere. Because if you don't have enough oxygen, the animals can't breathe. If the percentage is off, man cannot survive. We need the right mixture. Right percentage of hydrogen, right percentage of oxygen, nitrogen, helium, the proper mixing. These things take thousands of years to come to this level. The trees are the most important life form, as I said, because it's the trees that give the atmosphere oxygen. So you have to be a tremendous amount of vegetation on this planet for man to emerge. So here we are now after 5 eras of creation works. The book tells us now in Genesis 1:26. It says, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So now when we take a close look now at how this text tries to introduce man into this environment, we're told that God said, let us make man. Now we have to rally on our English language skills here. And we are sure that us is a plural noun. We are sure of that. So when we talk about the story telling us that God said, let us make man, for the first time, we have to think about whether a S did drop off of God in the beginning. That the story should have said, in the beginning, the gods created the heaven and the earth. I think a S drop off at the God in the first line. So if we had read it, in the beginning, the gods created, then we'll get to verse 22, we wouldn't have a difficulty. But now we hear about a us. We hear about a plurality in the creation for the first time. And the plurality suggests that God is a multiplicity. God is a plurality. God is not a singular construct. And it continues to say that God said, let us make man. And I think they wrote man with a small m purposely, because the small m suggests a single male. If that was written with a capital M, it would give us a whole different meaning. So this is the most critical verse now, It says, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. So the gods have a likeness. The gods have an image. And the image and likeness of these gods must be related to the darkness that was upon the face of the deep. And so when God created man in his own image, in the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So for the first time, we are aware that the creation of them is taking place on the 6th day. That God makes them in the image and likeness of them. This is the creation of males and females. And it continues in Genesis 28, when God said, be fruitful and multiply all the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and every living thing. This is God sending out males and females to go out and multiply and replenish this earth that has been created. Males and females. No singular person now being sent out. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26. That the gods bless them. So the creation of man is a them. It is a people that has been created. In the same way, a flock of birds and a herd of cattle were created in this multiplicity, males and females, that there can be reproduction. So we're seeing now, before Adam and Eve, there is a creation of males and females who are sent out to multiply and replenish the earth. Again, before the creation of Adam and Eve. In the 6th day, we are seeing the recording in the book of Genesis that God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply all over the earth and subdue it. So this is the man that black people must begin to relate to. These are the males and the females created by the Almighty and set down Alkebulan as the original land. These are the original people, males and females, who were sent out to multiply and replenish. And in that going out to multiply and replenish, the black man moved out of Africa. And in his movement, he got into Asia and Far East China. And the melanin evolves. And the evolution of black melanin to brown melanin to yellow melanin, which give us groups of people that look like Indians, and people that would look like Orientals and Chinese. This is the explanation that I think is practical in relating to black history. That the black people have a history that can be found in the Genesis, in chapter 1, where black people have been created and have been given the instructions to go out and multiply and to replenish the earth. And on the seventh day, God saw everything that he had made, and it was very good. And so the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And on the seventh day, God rested. With man, African, spread out across the planet Earth, multiplying, evolving, culturally, spiritually. Yeah. And then God rested on the seventh day. No Adam, no Eve.
Claim to fame. Time to tell the
Metamorphosis continuing. The text lines are sending in the questions in a very deep way. Peter Mackenzie wants to know who is Godfather and Godmother. You see, African people have to ask those questions, because we know about parenting and, genetics. So we can't over things just being here without a procreation process. So we ask about these mother and father things because that's what we know. We know about the ancestors who are males and females. We know about the principles of masculinity and femininity because we know that the universe has these two powerful principles called male and female. It's in the plant life, it's in the animal life, it's in electricity, and it's in the kingdom of man. So we continue to explore what we have been given as history. And we begin to continue to query, how does that history fit into our story? And our story is the most ancient because the Bible that we have, King James Version, was published in English in 1611. 1611, just we're there. And there's argument about its originality and tracing it to Greek and Hebrew and all of these various languages. But there's a point in time when there is no story. So we have to recognize that stories are written by people, and people write out of their imaginations and oftentimes out of their own experiences. But to write about things when no man even existed really is very, very strange. And we have to be very careful how we take these things as reality. Black people, original Alkebulan people. So in this section now, our story. One of the lectures that was presented was by Ras Makonnen. Ras Makonnen spoke about the Moors of Portland. Because the people in Portland have been tricked. And the people of Jamaica generally have been confused about Nanny. And more so about the Moors. The people of Portland have been told to think that Moor is spelled M-O-O-R-E. And it's some kind of English guy named Moore. When in the real story of the black people, the Moor that we know of is the M-O-O-R. And the Moors are people that should be taught in schools amongst people who are searching for their own history and roots. Think about the Moors now. The Moors really came out of the western section of Africa. And what was peculiar about the Moors was their religious orientation. These are Africans who were Islamic. Because Islam had invaded Africa and had turned many, many Africans into slaves. And part of the capturing of a population is to capture them through religion. Capture them God and give them the God of the colonizer and take away the God of the people. So the Africans' gods were removed from them and they were replaced with Allah. And Allah was considered to be the Almighty. This is the Muslims. These are the Islamic forces that invaded Africa. So the Africans became Islamic, and Islamic culture developed high levels of industry and education. Islamic culture developed high levels of study. Universities were set up in Western and Northern Africa. So the Africans, highly intelligent, highly organized, moved out of Africa and went on a mission of, let us call it, upgrading. So the Africans, the Moors, went across a very small strip of land that connects to the Mediterranean, connects to the European continent. And so the Moors, led by the great General Tariq, invaded Spain, which was really, the backwoods. And in that movement into Spain, brought civilization and brought culture to the Europeans. The Moors brought technology, they brought information, they brought culture. They taught the Spanish people how to bathe, they taught them how to read, They built cities, they built universities, and it is the Africans who were called the Moors, who ruled Spain for over 700 years. So up to the beginning of the 20th century, 1900s, the Moors have been a force. Well, not really 1900s, up to the 17th century. All right, let's be more precise. The Moors controlled Spain for over 700 years. But from this angle, in the Caribbean and in English history, we are not told about the history of the Moors. We are told about the history of the British. The Spanish now, we know, controlled Jamaica in 1492. The Spanish finally conquered the Moors. And in that conquering of the Moors, they actually enslaved the African people. The knowledge of the Moors brought information to Isabella, brought information to people like Columbus that there were lands and that there was a possibility of sailing. So in order for the Spanish to get into the Caribbean in 1492, they had to use the knowledge, they had to use the experience of the Moors. So it is African people who were brought here by the Spanish. And in that journey here, a lot of the Africans who came were tradesmen, were freedmen. Many of the Africans who came were slaves. But the slavery to the Spanish was basically an indentured type of slavery. The Africans still maintained their culture, they still maintained their names, but they were indentured slaves. They were providing service to the Spanish. So when Columbus landed here, and when Penn and Venables came to Jamaica, this country was poorly defended by the Spanish. The English tried to take Cuba, and they couldn't take Cuba, and so they decided to come to Jamaica. So there was a war. There was a war between the British and the Spanish. During that war, the Africans who came as Moors did not join the war. They were no part of the British, and they weren't defending the Spanish. So a vast population of black people during that period moved away from the plantation and went into the hills. So the original Maroons were Moors. The original Africans who escaped from the Spanish plantations were Moors. And these are the Moors who were brought to these islands by the Spanish in the era of Columbus and before. So when the British finally conquered this island, there were no slaves. There were no slaves. All of the man them who were captured moved away into the mountains. And so the first set of quote-unquote Maroons were Moors. Not only were they Moors, they were a society and of people who knew that they were the conquerors and teachers of the Europeans. The Moors knew that they taught white men how to bathe, and that they taught white men how to be hygienic and how to have civilization, and the Moors refused to be enslaved by any European. So the battle between the Moors and the British would be very, very intense. It was a Muslim group fighting against a Christian group. It was African Muslims versus European Christians. Still pondering the question, you know, does God have a mother and a father? And then why is it God sent a son instead of not a daughter? Eh? What is this thing? What is this thing? Do we need this thing? So the first set of Africans who were enslaved and brought to Jamaica were not brought from Africa. The first set of Africans who were enslaved and brought to Jamaica came from Spain. Not from Africa directly. And these Africans knew that they were the builders of Spain, that they were the builders of all things European, and didn't feel themselves at any point in time inferior. Yeah, these are the Africans who knew literally that they were superior to the British, that they were superior to the Spanish, and refused to be enslaved by people who they had brought civilization to. This is the level of resistance put up by the Maroons, the marooned Moors, the Moors of Portland, who set up shop in the hills of Portland and went higher and higher in the mountains of Portland and tell the British that if you want us, come and get us. And if you want to come and get us, it's one way up, one way down. And so several wars were fought with the Moors, and the Moors win them hands down, convincingly. No challenge. Eventually, what white men do when they can't win is engage in a process that they call compromise. They form treaties. They couldn't defeat the Moors. These are the same Moors who were also sent to Santo Domingo, Haiti. And it is the Moors who rose up and wiped out the British, wiped out the Spanish, and won all the wars in Haiti and set up the first independent state for black people in the midst of enslavement. The Moors. Toussaint Louverture and Desailly. These are the men who had the culture and the power to defeat all white forces and had no mercy in killing the enemy who was white. So the Europeans have always had a scorn for the Haitians because those Moors had no respect for white people. The Spanish attacked and the Haitians drove them back. The French did it, the British did it. They all combine and come together, and all of them get them butt kicked by the Moors. And the thing about the Moors now, they were Jamaicans who were part of the revolution in Haiti. One of the Moors out of Jamaica was a man called Bookman Doty. And Bookman went to Haiti on a boat and helped to inspire that revolution in Haiti. So you see the Moors now, the Moors are no ordinary people. So Nani, who was a high priest within the Moors, was most powerful. But they don't tell us that Nani was a Muslim. And they don't tell us that Nani was a free black woman who was never part of the enslaved plantation. So there are many, many black people now in Portland who were never slaves. And there are many people in Jamaica who were never slaves. Serious thing. The slaves who were Africans who were enslaved on the plantation were all Christianized. Yes, the plantation slaves were Christianized. Into them was driven the fear of Jesus and the fear of God. The Africans in the mountains had no such fear. The Africans respected nature and they understood the power of Allah. So the war between the Muslim and the Christian continues to the extent that it's destroying the continent of Africa now, because within the black continent, we have black people now who are now divided between Allah and Jehovah God. And the race suffers through this great division by these two alien gods that have controlled the imagination of millions and millions and millions of black people. Yeah, the Moors of Portland, the Moors of Africa, Moortown.
Economic liberation is a duty I owe to posterity. Great Zimbabwe stands, ancient rock solid firm. Come now, Draco go down. Great Zimbabwe walls, great Zimbabwe walls, great Great Zimbabwe walls, great Zimbabwe walls. When they saw Zimbabwe walls, they said it was the foundation. They said it was the Syrian. They said it was the Chinese. When they saw Zimbabwe walls, they said it came from the Iberian. We know it is 100% African. Yaga yo, naga naga na Zimbabwe walls, great Zimbabwe walls, great Zimbabwe walls, great Zimbabwe walls. So who your Vasco de Gama be? So who brings Henry the Navigator be? So who was yours? So Walter Raleigh. So who was?
Of course, I have to continue healing the people who are connected to the Metamorphosis, whether by spirit or by ears. People are listening to on the telephones. People are listening to various devices. People are on 96.1 and 96.7. You know, the people in St. Thomas, East. Yes, Golden Grove and the courts there, and all the way down to Marant Bay. Healing all the people in that section of the island. And we're coming across Portland. Healing all the people in East Portland. People at Long Bay. Tracy Ann and Mona out of that nice place that the beach is beautiful. And the man who cooked the wonderful fish. Yes, I think it's Wade, the virgin name, and the two of them. Nice money still, but the fish tastes good. Yeah, the fish tastes good. And of course, the people them right here in Port Antonio. Right in the hills of Boundbrook, Chatova, and Springbank. Here the people in Free School, Port Antonio proper, Titchfield Hill. Around the market back, up all the lane, all in a Manganek Place, and around Lanza, and all the ones and ones. Yeah, Sammy, down the bar for all there. Peace unto the eye them, and hope the eye them liberating the eye self from all of these strange stories. How time can be condensed in a condensed can. Imagine putting 1,000 years in a condensed can. It must feel mad.
Them talking about them make some kind of discovery. I'm a living on chapology. Zimbabwe come now stand firm.
Hey to the people in Buff Bay. Yes, Tough Bay. Hey to the people in Natty Bay. Not to Bay. Yes, those are places that are full of styles. And we're going further down into Maryland. People in Gale and Port Maria who have made this a part of them lifestyle. Styles FM. And of course, further down the coastline, all the way down to Mo Bay, and around the corner to Hanover, up to Westmoreland, and coming up to St. Elizabeth again. This island where Jamaica, yeah, 100 miles south of Cuba, 90 miles south of Cuba, 100 miles west of Haiti, in the Antilles, this center of Atlantis. Yeah, Jamaica, yeah. Just like Jamaica, them encouraging us to run away while the outside forces take it over. Well, Africa is the same thing. Them encouraging us not to go there while the Europeans rush in for holidays and vacations and taking things quietly, recolonizing the land while they are telling us not to go and telling us to leave Jamaica. But if we begin to rethink it ourselves now, if we begin to colonize Jamaica, we want to set up Jamaica as a, if Jamaica become liberated, Africa will follow. Yeah, man, the man take it seriously. If Jamaica would become the liberated space for black people, the way Haiti was, all Africa going to follow. Because them follow Jamaica. And those who govern recognize that and try to discourage the cultural fronting that the island projects and what the world recognizes about Jamaica. Yeah, man, once we begin to organize here and defend our black history, our story, our Africanicity, the power of our melanin, and begin to build economic structures. Yeah, man, this will be paradise in reality. But on the other side of the coin, it is hell because of the self-hatred and destruction of African value systems for alien ways of thinking and behaving. We have to reconnect to our blackness fearlessly. But it's about knowledge. Or if we run with belief and superstition. Yeah. Like Humpty Dumpty go and drop off of the wall.
But Israel don't have it that way. By the time you get steady, cause everybody don't know Jaja already. Africa, boy, coming to take it, here I come. Boy, Africa, boy.
So Africa, the great Egyptian empires, the great Moorish empire, the great Islamic forces that black people project across the world. Yeah, we have to recognize Africa. Yes, it's a shape of our brain, you know. The black man brain shaped just like Africa. From the side view. Yeah, man, the same shape. We are African people, you know. Africa is a projection of our consciousness. Yes, the blackness is within. It is within the brain that we must search for our consciousness. The blackness of our brain. We can't be afraid to enter our own brains. We can't be afraid to connect with the pineal gland and recognize the link between the pineal gland and the environment and the cosmics. We have to be aware of cosmic consciousness. Yes, it's not just about spirit now. There's a higher level that is called cosmic. And in that cosmic consciousness, one becomes harmonized with the entire cosmos. And you move away from thinking of strictly of a universe. Realize that there is a multiverse of perceptions. That there are several universes. There's an infinite amount of verses in this infinite song. Yes, because the universe is just one verse. Yeah, one verse out of a song that has no end and no beginning. You know, the word universe is a very interesting word to deconstruct and look into. Uni is a prefix that means one. And of course, you know what a verse is. It's a line, it's a thought, it's an idea. But we have to be conscious that there is no one idea that dominates our existence. There are several ideas. Ideas are infinite. So we have to move away from this universal prison lock to a sort of pluri-perception, making space for others, that we have greater tolerance for other persons' worldviews, and we don't become dogmatic in trying to insist that how you say it, and so it have to go. And if you don't know Jesus, you cannot be saved. You can know yourself. And that's what we try to do. Know ourselves. Yeah, we're going out of Black History Month. They say this is it in Black History Month. So we are exploring in Metamorphosis things that are profoundly affecting our psychological perception of time and space. Things that are deeply implanted in our memories between the age of 0 and 3, when the job was done on us. When them christen and baptize we and brand we and do all kind of things before we can even say we name. Yeah, man, we get dumbfounded with spirit and water and fire talk and baptism and put on different name and all kind of confusion. You don't see why we behave the way we behave. So we are reconfigure and refigure how we get into this position. And a lot of it has to do with how we have been informed. What has informed us. And the information we get, we have to begin to re-examine it, repackage it, and push it forward in a more liberating way. So the Black history is moving on. And the history of black people will remain a topic forever. Because there's also remembrance now, of remember the concept of being Africans. Yeah, the Africanicity, that we can connect it to the land and the resources and the need to develop capital, wealth, money, and lose the fear about this one life we are living, because African life is continuous. Our life forms are cyclical, so there is no one life that we will live. Our lives are continuous. We exist, we remove ourselves from existence, and then we re-exist. Yeah, man, the African family is continuous. It is cyclic. So I could drop away now from his, why I'm only have one life to live now, so I do anything I feel like. It makes you irresponsible when you take up that attitude. When you realize that you have more than one life to live and you shall make a next entrance, you may begin to guard and protect and develop what we have here and now. So the futuristic projection, we need to reduce that futuristic think and begin to think about the now. And to understand the now, we must become even more proficient at understanding what happened already. Yeah, the foundation of the present is the past. And if you don't over the past, the present will be shaky. And there will be no further building for the inevitable. Yeah, so it's set up. So the metamorphosis, going through these paces and stages of information and querying the whole idea of history. Whose story? And the story that is in the Bible of about the beginning. I must begin to rewrite and reconfigure the starting of our culture. Where do we go for that? We have to begin somewhere on the African continent. We begin to explore the societies in Africa, and normally we get locked into ancient Egypt, into ancient Mali, into Zimbabwe, and we can use any of those points to enter our story. Yeah, metamorphosis. We're tired of what them I tell we. We're tired of it. Yeah, man. And this Papa Jesus thing now work. It just now work. Yeah, it's not working. For the women, it may be working because it gives them this sexual salvation that them have a man. Yeah, them personal man. But it doesn't help the race. It also helps to move the black woman from the black man. Enough things we have to unlearn. Enough things we have to reprogram. It's a work in progress. many people believe? How many people believe that the world will come to an end? How many people really believe that this world will end? For the people who believe the world will end, you need to reorganize your thoughts and your definition about what is the world. Because if the world is this place that we have been describing, as we heard in the book of Genesis, with these millions and thousands of years of experience and evolution, where and who can project that this will end? How will the life in the sea come to an end? How will the life in the air? How will all creeping things and plants come to an end? So obviously the world that the book has been telling people about is not the world of the plants, nor the various kingdoms that were put onto the planet before the creation of man. We have to recognize this now, So in other words now, we're looking into the other book now, the book that they have given us to perplex our brain and confuse us, telling us now about the end of the world. So there are two books that they have given us. One book tells us about the beginning, and one book tells us about the end. And between those two pages, the page of those two books, black people's life have been locked up. So between the Genesis and the book of Revelations, millions and millions of black minds have been locked into those pages. And these are pages of literature written by men. One woman so far we hear has a book that has been put forward. And we know that the writers of these books were very sexist. And the writers of these books were very racist. And the writers of these books were basically homosexuals. We know this because the lifestyle and the history of the writers shows this. We know that the King James and his court were a court of men. And we know that the Greek philosophers and writers were lovers of young boys. So the culture that has been projected in these books called the Bible is an alien culture to black people. So the writers are telling black people when the world begins, and these writers are telling us when the world ends, and they go further to tell us how many of us will be saved. This is the extent of the story now, And millions of people locked up in the story, free like puss. There is a man called John the Divine who was sent into exile on the island of Patmos, somewhere in the Aegean Sea, a little bit below Greece, and off the African continent. And this man in his misery sits on the island and writes how him see the world going to end. And we as black people, we don't even know who this John the Divine is, We don't know nothing about him. We don't know who is a cokehead or a crackhead. And it's him going to write and put down things on paper. And we know, with our genius of building pyramids and changing the Nile Valley, the Nile River by engineering feats, and building the great walls in Zimbabwe. Them man, we going to bow down to a little man on a little island who's Zuki, who going to tell we now, say, the world going done. And when the world done, we want to look out for the signs and the symbols. And children will be having children, wars will be fighting, and we will get locked up and freeze up in that. Not realizing that this is part of the conspiracy to control the minds of the millions and millions of black people, and it's working. So there are people walking around called doomsday people every day talking about the world going done. Lord is coming for them people and you must repent. And give the Lord your money and sell your furniture and give up all your goods of what you have slaved for because the Lord is coming. Women must love the Lord because it takes so long to come. Run the music.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Jah, and the Word was Jah. In the beginning Jah created the heaven and the earth.
With style
Styles FM on the go, you can listen to your favorite programs by calling the USA number 213-992-4360. If you're in the UK, is 033-0010-3322.
Oh yes, you can. Be your own boss. Buy digital phone cards wholesale from the Source Card Center and resell them for a profit. It's the job that's easy, convenient, flexible, and you're the boss. Buy digital phone card wholesale from the Source Card Center and resell them for a profit. Conditions apply. Get started today. Visit or call us at 173 Mountain View Avenue, Kingston 6. Telephone number 978-3119. That's 978-3119. Source Card Center.
Planning a party, club night out, stage show, a gospel concert, or even a business sales event? Let Styles FM be a part of your promoting tool. Take advantage of our low-priced promotion packages with commercials, interviews, giveaways, reviews, and much more. We have special offers when you mix and match and bundle your options. Contact us at 876-286-9216 or 439-5160. Styles FM for the most effective way to exploit your marketing dollar.
Hail up there, hail up pretty P, hail up pretty P, hail up the hot wax people. Yes, I have to hail up the hot wax. Make Buff Bay light up. Yes, sir.
Ain't looking back, feeling stronger. Ready to launch the attack, do you remember? When we were the cream of the crop, is Bible. At the carbon we got, they took us away from Africa with an intention to kill our culture. But through the power of the Most High, our mental capacity get wider. Come harder.
Yes, our mental capacity getting wider as we improve our knowledge and dismiss the belief systems. You know, people think that when they see a rainbow in the sky, it's a sign from Lord God to remind the people of his destructive behavior. And we know that before man was created, there were rainbows, because rainbows are simple manifestations of light and water. Yes, simply the manifestation of light, rain, and sunshine and water, which gives us the process of diffraction that breaks up the light and shows us the various hues that exist within light. And so we see the colors of the rainbow long before Moses, long before Noah, long before any biblical character was even created. Before the first man was made, there were rainbows. And these rainbows had no symbolism for any destruction for people to see and to be afraid of. So we use knowledge to remove the superstitions and the idiot things that we hold on to dearly because of our fear. We fear. And once the greatest fear man can have is fear, you know. Yes, and what the Europeans in the slave system did was make sure that we were riveted with fear and doubt and mistrust. These three characteristics are deep in the black consciousness: fear, doubt, and mistrust. And as long as we hold on to those three negative traits, we will never come together as a people, because once you are fearful, you're going to be doubtful. And if you're doubtful, you're not going to have no trust. And with no trust, there's no confidence, and nothing can move without confidence. So we cite up where I go on. And we are saying, now, this book, what them give us, called the Book of Revelations, where people are afraid to read. That is the extent of the fear. I'm afraid to read it. It's a book of terror and judgment, and red horses and white horses and black horses flying all about the place. I'm going to interpret and I misinterpret. And then there's a Lion of Judah now that will break the 7 seals, and one big thing going on in John the Divine Head. This is a little man upon an island, you know. And them peyote, and them thing, and them mushroom. And writing these things that are going to imprint on black people's mind. And we're going to call that our history. So when we re-examine this story about the end of the world, this world has no end. The solar system in which we live has no end, because the sun remains the center. And the system will only collapse if the sun dies. Now we know that suns are stars. Yes, every sun is a star. And all stars are born, and stars die. over millions and millions of years. So there's no end to the earth. What ends on the earth are certain cycles. Cycles start and cycles close. Cycles of behavior, cycles of governance, cycles of dominance. And these are things that change. So the Egyptians were once the rulers of the earth. The cycle has shifted. There have been invasions and invasions. The Egyptians are no longer the rulers of the planet. The Europeans have conquered. The Chinese are now in the ascendancy. These things are cyclic, and if we recognize it, we seem to begin to reorganize ourselves and position ourselves as a people for our ascendancy in the cycle of time and space.
Mother, there's too many of you to cry. Brother, there's far too many of you die. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer.
Yes, the metamorphosis continues. We're moving now into our news, Afrocentric views on news. This is the perspective taken from the Rastafarian, African-centered perspective. What the world look like from that perspective. And on my Facebook, I have a link from Akida Amlock. Hail my brethren. And they must say, oh, lick shot. Him like that one day, the last reason. But I'm wondering, how is it that two countries, two white nations, who once vowed that they would never war with each other, that they are now in conflict? And he's making a reference to the Russia-Ukrainian situation. Now, the Russians are a very interesting group of white people. Yeah, they really see themselves as different from the people who are really in Europe. You remember, the Russians were the centerpiece of the Soviet Empire. And the Soviet Empire made its attempt to dominate the world, and its biggest enemy was the capitalist empires ruled by America. So the American-Russian conflict has always been. We see it in the Olympics, we see it in all sorts of competition, but we must not forget that these countries are also united in the space program. They're united in certain levels of technology and research, but they war over dominance of the land, because the land is limited. The Russians now, after being pulled down by the Americans and Ronald Reagan and the Pope in the 1990s, where the Soviet Union was dissolved with the help of the Catholic Church and the Reagan Empire. And that pulling down, there's several revolutions occurred in Europe. And a wave of so-called capitalism overtook Europe. The Berlin Wall was smashed. And everybody began to talk about this new one world order being dominated by American capitalism. So this one world order now will be governed by something called creeping Americanization. It was America's attempt to take over the whole world culturally, because the Russians and the Soviet Empire was pulled apart. But the Russians never gave up. The Russians lost much territory, but they held on to their identities and their integrity, and they have survived, just like the Cubans have survived, and they are now in a position of rebuilding. In the rebuilding of Russia, Russia still has ambitions to reclaim certain places. Now, one of Russia's key allies is the Ukraine. But the Europeans, in still working to pull down Russia, they have been encouraging parts of the Ukraine to become part of the European Union. And of course, there's another section of the Ukraine who are devoutly Russian. So the battle now for the Ukrainians is an attempt by the Western powers to really defeat Russia properly and to spread their Americanization and capitalism into those far corners. They want some jeans factory in Russia. They want more Coca-Cola companies. They want American companies into these, what you call, marketplaces. So when we say the Ukrainians and the Russians at war, they're not warring for the reasons that we understand war. That is them ethnic tribalism. That is them effort to be dominant, in other words, Western lifestyle of capitalism. And the Russians are still maintaining their socialist ideology. In Jamaica, of course, the Russian ideology and socialism were defeated. As a small island, capitalism overrun us, and there are no capitalists without education. When we look now into the news that's happening on the rock here now, you know, like when we turn on the radio here to listen to the news, it's like if you don't hear about a shooting, you wonder if you listen to the news. It has also become almost like a feature that you anticipate. In the first section of the news, it's about how many people were shot and how many people were killed. Now that can't be the way to conduct news. You can't be greeting the public consistently with the things that are the worst things happening in the society. When people listen from a distance, it drives fear into the people, which seems to be part of the campaign to keep people from coming home. I'm of the view that the governors don't want people to come home and demand change. They want you send in your change. Yeah, they want you send it in the form of remittance. But don't come. Because if you come, you might demand organization and discipline to time. And the whole chaka behavior and yard talk. People don't want it who have experience outside the country. You know. People on the outside know about that disciplined, organized societies. When them come at the thing called yard, a pure chaka. Yeah. And no law. So the law here is tricky. And the law doesn't seem to apply equally across the board. We have a case in our courts today with an entertainer who has been incarcerated for almost a number of years now. And the amount of faultiness we have found in the trial, and lack of this and lack of that and lack of evidence, and man put down key and forget to take it up and just loose slack. And so people can't easily wiggle them away out of their criminal behavior. Simply by what them call know somebody. So the problem here is great in terms of order. And they say when the people leave Jamaica, they become very orderly, you know. They form lines in the airport. They form lines at the bus stop. They queue up. Them all know the word queue. And you come to Jamaica, tell a man queue, him look for you, ask you what you deal with. The drink you want is most of queue or the rum you want. What kind of queue you tell man about? Yeah, we don't know them kind of queue there.
Nowadays they attack them now cool out. In the community the innocent move out. The gangsters them need a new route. Police and thief couldn't be friends. Yet the two of them are roads at the same trend.
Yeah, the situation in Jamaica, the police tricky. I'm in the marketplace this evening, this morning in Port Antonio here. And say, a group of policemen come in and surrounded by a politician from Kingston. And everybody are guard him and thing. And when I look at the group, I say, youth, I used to teach at school. And the youth look big now, you know, and him look big at him of a big gun. So I stand and I watch him a profile. When he pass me, I say, yeah, youth, man. Him say, hey, wait, what am I do? Say, the gun look bigger than you. Him laugh. And in the real terms, these young men have been empowered with weapons. Yeah, so in the society now we have young men armed in uniforms, and we have a army of young men out of uniform who are also armed. So how do we bring these warriors? How do we get a war conference? Because peace treaties don't help Jamaica, you know. We look like we need a war conference where all the warring parties just come and sit down at the table and resolve the differences. Yeah, all the peace conferences don't work in Jamaica. Maybe it's time we have a war conference. And all the warriors, all those who have issues, we just put them in a place and we have give them safety and really find out what are their issues, why the society is being run the way it run. Yeah, man, a lot of violence, a lot of man them committing the violence. We have males. We have an issue with males here. We have an issue where males don't even know what it is to be masculine. Where masculinity and femininity are being confused. Yeah, we have to sort ourselves out right here on this rock. want to specially dedicate this song to my friend in the Bronx, Nurse P. This is special request to the eye. And also right here in the land, Pretty P. You can take piece of this too.
Just to make it quick, come and tend to the sick. Cause there must be something she can do. This heart is broken in two. Tell her it's a case of emergency. There's a patient by the name of Gregory. Night nurse, only you alone can quench this thirst. My night nurse, oh gosh, oh the pain is getting worse.
Yes, this is really to the nurse, all the nurses here and there who are caring for the sick. Yes, I want the item know say, I wonder if anybody can cure Dandy. Or is just on the Gregory. I wonder who can get the cure. Come in, night nurse.
Night nurse, only you alone can quench this thirst.
No vacancy, no vacancy. You can't get no job. No vacancy.
Hail to the sons and daughters of Jah, Rastafari. Hail to the one who got the faith in it, Selassie, I and Listen to me, I said I really got the feeling. I got the Rasta feeling. I really got the spirit. I got the Rasta spirit. I got the Rasta feeling. I said I got the feeling. I said I got the feeling. I got the Rasta feeling.
Yeah, Rastafari must consent to be healed within this tradition because it is a liberating force within the black constitution. It is a Rastafari who has been bold enough to leap out of the plantation with a faith into his blackness. Leap off the plantation into African consciousness fearlessly and recognize the power of his imperial majesty. Yeah, that's what the Romans cannot manage, you know. How can black people create their own divinities? It's out of our memories. It's out of the history of our own memory and our skin that we can recall our divinities, our gods and our goddesses. Because within the African tradition, the female is the center. The matriarchy was the foundation of our family system, where descendancies and lineage were actually defined through the female. It is the European that's come with this male man business, where women are becoming enslaved and turned helpmeet. We reject that, and I reject that outwardly. We respect the woman, the female, with her powers of intuition and creativity. And we overstand the leadership qualities of the male. So we have to bring these two forces together to create what was created when they said, let us make man. Males and females, created in the image and the likeness of the almighty forces of creation. So, Rasta man, Rasta woman, African man, African woman, black man, black woman, black consciousness, the powers of the thought, the mind, the spirit, the intellect, the emotions. These are all aspects of being. We have to reject that ego notion that was put upon us by Sigmund Freud. Black man have no ego. What we have is the I.
King of all kings, rule all things. Lord, give us strength. Never let I fail. To live out the greater part of my days. Give us strength. Jah, give us strength. Never let I fail. No, to live out the greater part of my days. Give us strength. Yeah.
Metamorphosis on the way out of another edition. But the hours just become less and less as the reasons get more and more. But you know, 3 hours out of 24, out of a period of a week of 160 odd hours, is not a great amount of time. So there are ones and ones who are considering and asking whether Metamorphosis has the potential to surface by day. Yeah, it's a potential that we are exploring, but everything requires a certain level of sponsorship. So if ones and ones have that inspirational desire, then just link Iman. You can find me on my Facebook. I'm at Doc Iman Blak. I'm on the Twitter at Iman Blak on Twitter. You can get me at imanblak@stylesfm.com, and of course the Rastafari University Facebook page. Encourage ones and ones to visit the Rastafari University. It's spelled UNIVERCITY, and get connected to the extension. Metamorphosis has metamorphosized, and so I and I continue to transform into eventually and ultimately all that I and I can be. Yes, we're coming out quietly, slowly.
I stand strong in Babylon.
Head up to the CEO. Yes, the Jackson Huel. And head up to Senior Jacko. And head up to Mrs. Jacko. Yes, and all the people inside FM, and of course Cassidy here, the silent assassin. Kill them tonight quietly. Yes. And of course, give thanks for another opportunity to sit into the seat at Styles FM. Hopefully the Metamorphosis is creating its impact in the consciousness, that the item becoming awakened to yourself and recognizing that the powers for change come from within. Psychologically, historically, spiritually, economically, we must progress. Marcus Garvey laid the plan. We must hold Garveyism as our religion. Rastafari is the cultural resistance to all forms of oppression. Peace and prosperity unto the eyes, and the eyes, and the eyes, until them Iowa. Iman Blak. Peace, prosperity, out of this place.
We are going, we are going, we are going. Head this train.
Yeah, I want to heal up the people them also out there in Dolphin Bay. Seen? Sophie?
This is Styles FM 96.1 on your FM dial.